What began as an experiment to bring my 11-year-old daughter into my business has evolved into Our Young Creators, a podcast, a training center, and a movement dedicated to equipping kids with real-world marketable skills so that they can fund their own brighter futures. We're here to inspire you to turn consumption time on devices into creation time and use technology as a tool to bond and not bicker with your kids. Join us each week as we share the inner workings of our partnership and bring you stories from guests of all ages and from all walks of life on our quest to nurture and to celebrate our young creators. Have you ever wanted to do something that you knew was going to help your business, but you were stopped in your tracks because you had certain beliefs about what that thing was going to look like? Well, today we are going to bust through the top 3 myths that I hear from podcasters or would-be podcasters when we chat about what the process looks like. Are you ready to dive in? Well, if you are tuning in live for the first time or listening to the podcast for the first time, my name is Young Pratt. I'm a 17-year performing arts studio owner turned chief dreamer and podcaster right here at Our Young Creators. I actually started podcasting way back in 2013, if you can believe it, and I myself fell into believing these myths as well. And I lived most of them and have now come out on the other side with some simpler ways to do things. As you're joining in live, catching the replay, or listening on the podcast, go ahead and leave your comments or any questions you have about podcasting right below this video. All right, let's dive in. Myth number 1, podcasting takes a long time. Now, remember when I said I started podcasting back in 2013? At that time, there weren't all the tools that are available now and the different pieces of software that are available. Live streaming wasn't really a thing. So a lot of the podcasting was done behind closed doors, if you will, meaning it was just you and your computer and your microphone that you talked into. And then when you were done, you edited that video and did a whole lot of behind the scenes work. Back in those days, it did take me a very long time to put out a podcast. Mostly because I was being a perfectionist. I was going back into these recordings and I was taking out the ums and the ahs. And if I ever stumbled over my words, I would chop out whole sections. I would even sometimes rearrange them. So because I was such a perfectionist, it was taking me a really long time. I'm here to tell you that podcasting can take you a long time if you let it. However, podcasting can be done much more quickly than it used to. I can share with you that my podcast in a weekend graduates have reported that they're taking about 30 minutes on average to actually record their videos. And because most of them are going live, we're putting in systems and processes behind the scenes that can help them automate. So once they go live, we're able to magically, as if we had a magic wand, and have that Live become a podcast for all the world to hear. Throughout the weekend, I'm going to be introducing you to my best friend, and her name happens to be Pammy, my podcast automation machine. So if you don't think you have time to spend 30 minutes a week building your business and connecting with your audience, then podcast in a weekend may not be a fit for you. Just know that I've spent the past several years really dialing in this podcasting process to make it simple because I like simple. For so long, I spent time making things super complicated, adding bells and whistles here when I didn't need to. So when I pulled away all the frivolity, what was left was Pammy. And I'm going to share Pammy with you during Podcast in a Weekend. Okay, so now that you know that podcasting doesn't have to take a lot of time, let's dive into myth number 2. And this myth, this is something a lot of people tell me, that when they want to have a podcast, they're held back by this myth. And it is this: podcasting is only for longtime business owners, gurus, and famous people. I'm going to stop right here and say this is a big no. This is definitely a myth. Each of us, including our kids, was put on this planet for a special reason. That reason was to step into our gifts and stand in the spotlight so we could then share the things that make us unique, the things that come easily to us, and share them with others in the hopes that we can help them in their own learning curve and their life's journey. So podcasting is for everyone. I honestly believe that everyone needs a podcast because we're all passionate about different things, whether it be our families or our hobbies, or maybe we like to be crafty on the weekends and we have other things we like to do that are not even related to our business. But we enjoy doing them so much that we could talk on. And likely you're probably already talking about the things you're passionate about with those in your circle of friends. And that, my friends, is content that could be shared on a podcast. Okay, are you ready for myth number 3? This is the one that I think stops more people than any other. Are you ready for it? Podcasting is too complicated and super techy. Now, if you know me, you'll know that I really adore tech. I love diving into new software, figuring out how things work, how to make it work better for my business, and how to put those things to work for me, not against me. So you may be thinking, because I'm super techy, podcasting is also super techy. And I want to say right now, that is not the case. Even if you are brand new to technology, I'm going to share with you some shortcuts and walk you step by step through how to set up your podcast, how to record it, how to put it on all the different platforms, everything you need to know about getting your podcast created and launched. You're going to learn step by step right alongside me during Podcast in a Weekend. And there's something really, really powerful about being in a group of people who also aren't super techy, who want to know how to do these things, but have that belief that it's not for them because of XYZ. We're going to strip away the techie part of it. Yes, we are going to use technology. Yes, we are going to use some pieces of software. However, I've done my very best to break it down for you into bite-sized chunks. So even the most new person to technology is able to grasp it and understand. And literally, if you can press play on a video and then go do that thing I just showed you, that's all the tech you really need to start your very own podcast. So now I want to know, do you buy into any of those 3 myths? Let me know in the comments. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to go back and review those myths that I hear about podcasting. Number 1, podcasting takes too much time. Number 2, podcasting is only for longtime business owners, gurus, and famous people. And myth number 3, podcasting is too complicated and super. I find that these 3 statements, these debunked, hold people back in their gifts. They're with the world. So I want to walk side by side you so we can together. And the way we're going to make this happen is through Podcast in a Weekend. Tomorrow, we kick off round number 3 already of Podcast in a Weekend. We're going to kick things off at the time, welcome celebration. Everyone knows where to be, where to find all your course materials, and really kick off the adventure in style. Throughout the weekend, I'm going to be walking right alongside you, cheering you on. I'll be your biggest cheerleader throughout the weekend. To take little steps and put them all together so that at the end, podcast is going to launch. That sounds good to you. Love you to this website, bit.ly/podcast in a weekend, and click the button that says save my seat, because now that you know that these 3 things become myths, they are absolutely false, and I'm going to prove that to you inside of Podcast in a Weekend. I have you join me. Have any questions about podcasting, just put them below. While I'm waiting for comments to come through, let me talk about a couple of things that are going to happen inside of podcast. When you join in on this adventure, you're going to be surrounded by people just like you, people who have a message, people who have gifts, and people in particular that have huge hearts to serve more people. Now, when you come from that place of wanting to serve, that just means podcast absolutely help you reach more people with your message. Now, you know that podcasting, again, is not for super or uber famous people. It is for people like you and me who have had experience doing some experience successes and now are happy to show how they can do those. And literally, there's about everything under the sun. A couple months ago, I was diving into iTunes, see the different types of podcasts out there, and literally everything you can imagine. There was a podcast hanging out at the laundromat, of all things. There's a podcast for people who want to be fishermen, or podcasts about raising kids, about eating well, literally everything. And I know I saw Cheryl on the live video earlier, and she has a podcast all about helping people live their lives after experiencing the loss of a loved one. It's definitely something the world needs. And you, my friends, have something to share. And there's absolutely somebody waiting for you. to stand up, raise your hand, and start your podcast to help them. Again, you can head over to bit.ly/podcast in a weekend and save your seat. And when you do that today, you're actually going to get access to some of the pre-work so you can start diving in as soon as just a few minutes from now and start your podcasting journey. If you do have more questions, you are welcome to comment and put them below. You can also message me right here on Facebook, or if you're hanging out at Instagram, you can just DM me over there as well. Okay, my friends, I'm going to call that a wrap for today. We busted through the top 3 myths that I hear from so many would-be podcasters that you now know are not true. So now it's your turn. It's your time to step into the spotlight and share your message with the world via a podcast. Cheers, my friends. If you're ready to harness the power of technology and get your message out into the world in a big way to make the impact you know you're meant to make for yourself, for your business, or with your family, head over to bit.ly/podcast in a weekend and save your seat in round number 3, which kicks off on Friday, November 16th. Save your seat now for Podcast in a Weekend at bit.ly/podcast in a weekend.